So welcome back to the A&S Way. You're probably looking around and thinking, this doesn't quite look like Vegas, nor are we dressed like we're in Vegas in Summerlin. That's because we are in a very, almost wintry, I would say, condition.
Almost. It's absolutely freezing. And even for the people that live here, they said how cold it is, horrendously cold.
But we are in England, in the southeast, in Kent at the moment, and it's simply because Ant loves it so much. He was like, Selena, I miss it so much, I need to go back.
I hadn't even mentioned going back here since my last time. That was you that wanted to come back, so we both decided that we'd come back to see family and friends prior to Christmas is the reason.
Yes, that's the true reason. It's not because Ant had willing to come here in the winter time. So what are we here for today, Ant?
Today we're here, really, we're going to do two videos. This first video is going to be showing you around one of the areas we were looking to buy in. So before we knew we were coming to the States, there were two main areas that we were going to choose to live in. And I'm squinting because the sun is super bright and low because it's winter. Two areas that we were going to choose to live in. One of them was Surrey. We went and had a look in a place called Tadworth, and in our previous videos I've linked to some of the homes that we were looking at. And the other place is called Ebbsfleet Valley.
Yeah.
Ebbsfleet Valley is a really interesting new part of Kent, and over the next 10 or 15 years they're planning on building 10,000 homes, a cinema, multiple hotels, shops. What else have we got here?
Tennis courts, communities. In fact, what's interesting about this place, before we knew of Summerlin, this is pretty much a master planned community within Kent, which is, I would say, first of its kind in Kent on this size.
Yeah, definitely.
It's no wonder why we liked Summerlin so much, because this is what we liked here.
Exactly. It is the master plan American style community that stretches many, many miles. So actually very similar to Red Point and all of those, the
they've
Paseos.
Got different sections here as well.
And each section has its own builder. So in the UK you have builders, one of our favourites is Red Row, you have Barratt's, you have Countryside, you have all of the different home builders that get their own or bought their own plots of land and are building their own home styles on them.
So we haven't super planned today.
But what we have planned is to ask you to make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you hit the thumbs up on the video.
But our intention really is just to show you around this part of England, Ebbsfleet, some of the bits that we like, the communities, and mainly around the home styles, because we've been sharing our personal journey in the US and what we've liked about Summerlin, and also sharing our perspective on the style of homes. We thought we would give, especially our American viewers that perhaps don't know what the UK home is like, the typical sizes, or the plots of land that they're on. So we can just give you some, look at, a bit of a taste of what it looks like and feels like for us.
Yeah, it's very homely to us because it's what we're used to. The US is still very different, even though we've been there 9 months now, still feels very alien sometimes, in the sense of the homes are so huge, the plots of land. Even though Vegas is quite small, the plots, they seem so big to us. Yeah. The design is so different, the roads are very different.
And no, you don't really get single-story homes here.
No, we only you get bungalows, but nobody builds those anymore.
No new builders build those anymore.
And you get apartments. That's it. That's really your single story. The rest are things like this. These are townhomes, and you do get them in the US. That is either 3 or 4 story. I don't know what those ones are, but they're quite common now because it's easier to build up than out because land is a premium. Yeah. So you can get, they're usually around 1,100 to 1,300 square foot, which is considered very big. What we were mentioning about how this is a master plan community, on new builds or previous builds, you do not get stuff like this. Now, this is one area in one part of Ebbsfleet Valley. You would never really get a little castle and play area for children. Usually it's just rows of homes and no parking, usually maybe 1 car. What they've done really nicely here is each section has its own little breakout area, very similar to the US.
Yeah, and this has even got, behind it, you probably can't see it, but there's tennis courts over there as well for the community.
Which we have right next to our house.
Yes, we do.
You book in and you can go and play tennis. So what we'll do, we're gonna walk around maybe 2 or 3 different areas here and show you the different home types. And when we see something interesting or a little bit different to the US, we'll point them out to you. Some of the things that are quite interesting here, you'll see along here, these are quite typical UK homes where they're terraced. So that's side by side. I can't remember, do you know what they call it in the US? I forget now.
I don't know, actually.
They call these townhomes, I think, when it's side by side. Somebody comment below.
Yeah, someone's
So these are just side-by-side homes. It's a bit different here because they've split them up. Often you'll just get rows, as in 20 houses linked together, but that's really common. And then what we started to do with the UK new build estates is on the end of those rows, you'll tend to get like a nice big detached house. And then following that, you'll get some...
We say big.
Yeah, this relative. You'll get these mid-size semi-detached homes. So let's go down here and you'll see what our parking situation. Bearing in mind this is actually a really good estate for parking. They tend to give you 2 parking spaces per property plus some additional parking here. So yeah, each house has got its 2 spaces, so this is for them, it's just for these. And these are very typical homes in terms of size. They'll be around 900 square foot. Anything to add, Sally?
I would say, I'm very curious to know what you think, actually, because I was saying to Anne that I bet it does look nice, and I would say I really like the look and feel. I find that UK homes, there's a coziness to their smallness. But what is interesting for me now is I can really see the size difference. That's the overwhelming size difference, and it's almost like you're scaling up and down, so everything proportionately as a consequence is smaller. If you see like the width of the drive space that you get typically for cars, I'll see if we find any bins in fact. So it's like everything is like that percentage much smaller than the US, which is quite interesting now.
In nearly all new housing estates, the way they work here is when a home builder buys the plot and they submit, let's say, 300 homes, a percentage of those has to go to social housing. So that could be 10, 15, 20%. So when they build those homes, let's just say it's 10%, 300 homes, 30 of those will go to social housing. So this is where a housing association, which too long to explain, but will take on those homes or buy those homes and then give them out to people waiting on the social housing list to get a home for their family.
Affordable homes.
Yeah, not necessarily even affordable. Is it misnomer, the word? So sometimes they're not for people to purchase. They could be given to them for free. So let's say you don't work, you will get that home through the housing association, and your housing benefits will pay for those homes. Now there's lots of opinions on that. So I think the reason for it is so you integrate different types of people. You don't just have
A section.
yeah, section. So I know in the US they call them projects, and we had housing estates where they would just all be for people on social welfare, and they wanted that not to happen again. So they forced the home builders to build homes for them.
I would still say though they're getting nice, lovely homes.
Oh, they're amazing
so when we
homes.
say, like, we're only saying like marginally a lower spec because that makes sense for the builder and for the housing association, but they're still really lovely homes to be living in.
Yeah, so yeah, the spec difference will be instead of getting granite or quartz, you'll just have the standard timber with the vinyl wrap. Instead of getting tiled in, it will just be a painted bathroom. Instead of having maybe some of the fascia uplifts, so where you've got these bay windows, you'll get no bay windows, they'll just be flat. Yeah. So it's not really a different home at its core, it's just different in some of the finishes. They still hold the same level of value, really, because it's the same house. But you're right, you can phrase them as more affordable homes, but sometimes they don't have to be affordable because you don't have to pay for them.
That's very true.
So, but you're still right, it's more affordable because it's free. And the next thing we're going to show you, and hopefully it's still recording because I can't check. The next thing we're going to show you is one of the other really nice things that I really like about new build estates is they will build schools on site. So each new estate might have to build a school, a primary school, and maybe a secondary school. And then usually right by that, there's the shops. So they'll build in a Co-op, which is a UK shop for our American viewers, or a Tesco Express, or some sort of smaller supermarket.
Local grocery store.
Yeah.
For our US.
Local grocery store will be built in on site. So we'll show you what that looks like and how they integrate that into the either apartment complex or a building. So it won't be just a standalone unit. The US are very used to everything is homogenized. Everything's a square box, and then you just put your Trader Joe sign on top of it. Here they integrate it into the local community. So I think it's actually really nice. So we're just coming up to where the shops are, and you'll see that we'll go over to them. You'll see there's an estate agent. But something I wanted to point out, they haven't opened this road yet, but what they've got is a crossroad that runs through the main intersection, and you'll see all of the home types are completely different. And I know some of these homes were sold to the housing associations because I had a look at them before we came out, and they were about 150,000 less. I don't think they're sold to the housing association. I think they're actually bought or built in partnership with the housing association because they were built for sale rather than rental. But you'll see this street is very cool. It's very nice how it runs up here. All right, what have we got here, Sal?
We have the local estate agents, and coming up we have what Ant was referring to, the Co-op.
Oh, but before we do that, let's have a look and see if they've got any of the prices. Sometimes they don't because they want to force you to go in. Price on application, price on application. Ah, here we go. Right, so this house here is a four bed, 3 bath, but they're about 1,300 square foot because I know that house, that's 600,000 UK pounds, Great British pounds. It's a lot of money. We will put in some price comparisons for you.
We should probably point out something about this area in general. So typically what you would find is the prices are higher the closer you're in central London and as you go out. But then what you will find as you go out from London and into Kent, that it doesn't just work out that the further away you get from London that it's less expensive. What you will find is a town closer into London is actually cheaper than here. With Ebbsfleet, because of this master plan community, all of the services, the communities, and the main thing,
high-speed route.
High-speed route. So you can go from here to London within 20 minutes, and that's one of the biggest attractions to here, which is why the prices are slightly higher than the surrounding areas.
Slightly.
Oh, significantly.
So next up is Co-op. So this is a local supermarket. They're much, much, much smaller, maybe 1/10 the size of a true full-size supermarket, but they tend to carry all of your daily essential needs.
I'd say Co-op is like a UK staple for all the local towns. Everywhere has a local Co-op, cooperative.
Yeah.
I think that there's a whole history around the Co-op, which I won't go into, but it was the idea of a local...
You won't go into it, or do you don't know it?
I don't know it that well, but I know the idea behind it.
Yeah,
was for
the concept.
The local town that it's literally in, or the village, and it's the groceries, they will have not just a grocery store, but they will have the local bank and every services where the community is benefiting from that.
Yeah.
Enterprise? I don't know.
Something like that. I don't really know the story.
Another thing that is really common here in the UK, so we've just gone past the road, like a few shops, estate agent, pharmacy, grocery store. But what you also get in most towns is a community centre, and that's another really common aspect of local services where they usually run events for families. So whether it's for children, teenagers, just various services where they can play games and
often
sports.
Have libraries
for
creche,
facilities.
And the last thing they've built here, or not the last, but one of the other major things, and last on this block, is the local primary school. So as we mentioned, they have to, often when you choose to build, you have to put back into the community, so there'll be a certain proportion of money set aside for that build to build things like this. So that's a new local primary school, and the reason being, the current schools are usually at the maximum. The doctor's surgeries are beyond. They're like 200 or 2 times the amount of patients that they need. So they'll tend to have to build a new surgery, encourage doctors to come here. They'll build new primary schools, encourage primary school teachers to come here. And it just keeps it that you're not overloading what's already here. You have to bring something else into the community.
We're often hearing about complaints about all these new developments and bringing more people into this town, and we can't cope. So
they have done a really good job here. One of the things that I know frustrates people, but I kind of understand it, is they said, oh, the services can't handle the current load of people, so why are you building here? Well, you kind of have to have the people before the services, because there's no money for it. You can't build the new buses and new roads and new everything else and then nobody actually turns up. It'd be the biggest waste of money. So it's this constant balancing act. What I would say is really good here, because it is a huge master plan community, they did a really good job of getting the new buses in, the new bus routes, the new roads, the tennis courts that we mentioned, and lots of the infrastructure actually came at the same time the homes were being built. Whereas normally, if it's a much smaller community of 200 homes instead of 10,000, often they'll build the homes and then 3, 4, 5 years later the infrastructure comes. So as Selena mentioned, one of the major benefits here, and probably the biggest reason why we would have chosen to live here, is the train. And I think the slow train's 19 minutes and the fast one's 17 minutes into London. And what that encourages, the reason why the prices are considerably higher, is a lot of people that would normally live in London might be willing to get on a 15, 20-minute tube. Well, actually, you can now live in Kent with a garden, 4-bedroom home, for less than what it costs to buy a 1 or 2-bedroom apartment. And that, of course, then drives a lot of the prices up. It's frustrating in lots of ways, because if you're just a local person in this community and have no business in London, it prices you out. But in a lot of ways, it's really good. Where are we now?
We are at the Red Row development. This is one of the places that we actually came to look at in terms of buying, and my personal, and I think Ant's personal, favourite style of homes.
Yeah, so their ethos, I think, with these, they've got multiple different collections, but their most popular and the one you see most often is the Heritage.
Yeah.
And they build homes that look like 1930s to 1950s homes, so they've got a very traditional look, but with all of the modern features. So for me, it works really well, because I do like the style of older English homes, as a lot of people do, but I don't like the problems that come with them. So they give you all homes that are built right now, today, but look like they're old homes. So we thought we would bring you around one of the estates. We actually looked on this, did you say that?
This particular
This
one,
very estate. And we were looking at, was it one of their 4 beds?
Yeah, I think it was the one right round that corner we came round. I remember looking.
We'll show you it in a moment. But to give you an idea, and these prices went up rapidly. I think even, how many years ago did we look now?
Oh,
2 years, 3 years ago?
3 years ago, and the prices just kept going up and up.
So they were probably around 600 at the time, a couple of years ago, and they're 1,400 square foot. And in a moment, I'm going to turn the camera around, because this is our actual home type.
Slightly different, but they've changed it a little bit.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, so it's the home type that we have, which is called a Shaftesbury, but slightly modified. They're 4-bed homes, but they're only 1,400 square foot, and they're considered quite big here. But I think those would now go for maybe £700,000, so close to the $1 million. So it's this one here, and actually this one's exactly the same as well, just slightly different paint. But those are the Shaftesbury home types.
Yeah, and similar to the US, when you're looking at a new build here, you'll go into the sales centre and they'll let you know what plots are available at a particular time, what's coming up. And I think by the time we started looking here, there were only certain plots available of the homes that we wanted. So again, it's kind of balancing the home, the location, where it is in the particular development. And I think the issue we had was the pylons. I think we didn't really like.
Yeah, I was trying to remember that. So I don't know whether it's really easily viewable, but we'll walk over there in a second. You'll see here and here. So this land used to be the old national grid. So I think it was a nationalised service, so providing power to the UK. It was a huge national grid site, and it's still got the power pylons up. So you don't usually see this on any of our new estates.
Yeah.
All of our cabling runs underground, unlike the US. But here it is very obvious because they're huge and it surrounds the entire estate, and it put us off quite a lot, I think.
Yeah, because you are paying a fair amount for these homes, and you kind of want, like exactly the same as us in the US, you're balancing the amount you're paying for the location, and you might not want to look at a pylon every day.
So that was one of the big downsides. To be fair, now, depending on where you are on this estate, you won't necessarily see it, but it's very noticeable, this side. As well as all of these heritage homes, and I think there's about 4 or 5 different home types. So there's lots of semis, there's a couple of terrace houses. They've got blocks of flats or apartments. Most of the apartment blocks here are 700 to 800 square foot. They still cost, at the time we looked last year, they were $290,000, so around $400,000. I'm sure there are a lot more now. I spoke to my brother recently and he said they'd gone up to about $335,000, so well over $420,000 for an 800 square foot apartment. Okay, so this is much easier to show you now. There, pylons. And it won't come across the camera, but they are absolutely massive. And then if you go here, there, and they run all the way around this. Over here you can see all of the what look like apartment blocks, and most of them are apartment blocks, but there's also hotels, which is over there, a pub, and a Tesco. Or is it a co-op?
Co-op.
And another co-op. All right, so the final part of this video, we're going to take you over to one other area, and it's built by, I think it's called Countryside, it might be Countrywide. So this is the final stop on our Ebbsfleet tour. There's way more to this than these 3 spots, but we thought we'd just take you to 3 of the places that we know and we're considering within Ebbsfleet Valley. This one is called
Springhead.
Yeah, Spring something. I think it is Springhead, and it's made up of 2 distinct sections. So we're going to show you one, but you'll see this section here, which, I mean, these are people's homes, so I don't want to say anything that bad, but
Look and feel.
you can see what they look like. And then the one that we'll show you, but you can see over our shoulder, is the ones here, which are very nice to look at. They are townhomes, but we'll describe to you how they differ a little bit. But to me, they're visually far more appealing.
So this particular area is where we stayed for about 2.5 months when we moved out of our home before we moved into the flat that we purchased. And I really liked it. This is where I first was being taught to learn to ride a bike by Anne. And even a woman had to come out and tell Anne off. Because she didn't think the way that he was teaching me was appropriate.
She was like, she was just like, she said, maybe it'd be better around the back, which you had suggested, but the way I teach is...
He was teaching me to ride a bike on a hill.
Yeah, we wouldn't call it a hill. I ride on hills. It was a very mild gradient of about 2%. But I understand if you're learning to ride, it's not that easy. But to me, if you can master it at the beginning, it's going to be a lot easier for you.
But I really liked it here because what you can see, we're in the park. So as Ant mentioned, around all the developments here, they create these communities. So there's a community centre here where you can get food, and then there's this central park with lots of area. I was practicing my bike here. I was going out running. People work out here, so it's just a nice place with all the houses around. Yeah,
it's one of the best places in the southeast, I think, to live, and it's somewhere where you really can see, okay, it's £100,000 more than 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes in a car down the road, but it's probably worth every penny, simply for the fact that even from here it's maybe a 15-minute walk at the most to the train station, and then it's 17 minutes into London. You practically live in London. From the part that we just showed you, it's a 10 to 15-minute walk max again, and then 17 minutes into London. So that's actually shorter than a lot of people's journey times that live much closer to London.
Yeah.
So for me, that alone, it makes it more worth it. And the fact that you've got all of these areas and they're very well kept, so quite similar to what we praise about Summerlin. It's not kept to the same standard,
Nowhere near.
but it's sort of maintained at that level in the sense of each of the areas has a nice mowed grass. They're kept so the grass isn't dead, because a lot of places it will die after a little bit. They've kept the trees really nice. Most of the houses have been kept to a good standard. For some reason they went for the ones over there where it's cream and they look
They don't.
yeah, it doesn't
age
really
well.
fit. But otherwise it looks pretty good, and the builders obviously have to adhere to whatever they agree to build to, so it maintains a certain look.
Yeah, and the homes behind us, Ant's mentioned that we quite like those if we had to pick something around here, and we did look, and I was looking last year, a year and a half ago when we were here, thinking, oh, maybe we'll buy that, move into that and then rent that out. But they were at that point, so they're 4-bedroom townhomes.
Yeah, they're 4-bedroom terraced townhomes,
Townhomes.
but with garages.
Which is very appealing for us.
Yeah, and the big downside was the gardens are non-existent, but I mean, you can see how far away it is from this park, so you've kind of got it in a different way.
Yeah, but I think I was trying to remember how much the homes were, and this is a year and a half ago, but I think it was around
I think they were around 500, so they represent
pounds.
for the area good value for money, because as we mentioned, the ones further over are around 600 at the time, maybe a little bit more, and I'm sure they're way more than 500 now. But in terms of this area, it's probably the best value for money you're going to get.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they were between 13 and 1500. I can't remember exactly.
I
square
think
foot.
they're at the top end of that.
Might have been
I
around
think,
1500
yeah.
square foot, because they're quite wide and they've got 3 stories, so it's quite easy to get that square footage in, unlike some of the townhomes which are really narrow and they just build up. So reasonable amount of space, especially for the UK, a reasonable price, but what was it at the time? I think out of our price bracket, because we were moving.
We were moving, and in reality we had set a budget and we didn't really need a 4-bedroom home. We just thought it would be more comfortable for us, and also I don't know, maybe we're thinking if we ever did come back to the UK that would work out better, but it wasn't the right timing for us anyway.
Hopefully it's been enjoyable, informative to see the other side of where we would have ended up had we not moved to the US, and hopefully there's a lot of good information as to how new build estates are set up in the UK and what the homes look like.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.